Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, we'll be starting a new series wherein we'll be building an entire website fully responsive with maybe multiple pages if necessary. And then we'll be making it a fully professional website which you can use for any maybe professional agency, or maybe you can use it for your own need as well if you wanted to. And this is going to be fully responsive. So in this video, we'll be building this first section. Now, since it's going to be really difficult for me to cover this in one single video, so we'll be doing this in parts. So the website that we'll be building is this one. Now, if you look at the main landing section, so we have this navigation, then with a heading with frontier of talent acquisition, and then some text, and then this get started button with some social links, and then also this kind of fancy looking download button, and then the image here. So we'll be building this in today's video, and then in the next videos or the next series of videos we'll be building the rest of the stuff. And also we might add some animations, so on scrolling you might see some different animations, and also we might add a loader or so. So yeah, that's it. So let's see the one that we have built. So this is the one that I've built. So I've changed the logo from on folk to linked, and then I've removed the navigation, some of the stuff, for example these platform, solutions, resources, marketplace, and about, since I do not want it to make it like since this is kind of like a SaaS product. So when you'll click onto this get started, you'll obviously get taken to that specific page where you can add your stuff, like what solutions you provide and all the different stuff. So I just wanted to have here the login and then this get started stuff. And then we have the header with images, icons, and also this paragraph with get started button, and also this fancy button which says that this is also available on iOS, and then this image. Now this is completely responsive, so if I were to shrink the size, hold on a second. Yep. So if I were to shrink the size, you can clearly see that it adjusts automatically, as you can see. So all the different media query have been added, and we'll be doing that in this video itself. So in the next video probably we'll build all the other stuff. And then if you see, we also have this client testimonial section, which is a slider, so we'll be making it fully functional. And the same for this. So reports section is also a slider, so we'll also add a slider here. And then we have this fancy footer. So the source code of this will be available, so you guys can download and you guys can use it. So I'll add the link to the Behance post from where I was inspired, and I'll add the link down in the description. So do make sure to check it out, and also check the owners of the design. Thank you. Now before getting started, I wanted to tell you guys that to build this, we'll be using a Bootstrap grid system. Now there are multiple libraries which offer the grid system, but we'll be using Bootstrap one. Now there is no specific reason. The only reason is maybe because I have been using it for quite some time, and I'm kind of comfortable using Bootstrap's one rather than using other ones. Now they're not that difficult. They're pretty simple. Now if you do not have any idea regarding what a grid system is, I'll add a link to one of my videos wherein I teach how to build a custom grid system, and I explain what a grid system is, and also we build a website using that specific grid system that we just create. And so I'll add the link to that in the description, so you guys can check that out. Now a grid system in CSS, if I were to explain you in brief, it is basically a layout technique that allows web developers, basically us, to structure the page content into grid of rows and columns. Now it helps in creating a responsive and organized layout for the website. Each row wherein can be divided into a certain number of columns Now for Bootstrap, they have 12 columns, but for others, there can be 15, 20, and 24 maybe, and even more if there are any. So this just depends on what library you're using. So we'll be using that in this video. So it's not too complicated. And that library comes with a few other stuff, like you can also use the containers. And I think you can also use the margin and padding shorthand classes. So yeah, so we'll be using those in this video itself. So you'll learn a lot. So let's get started. So here I am in my VS Code and I have opened the folder with the name of linked. Now inside of this, I have an images folder wherein I have all the different images that we'll be needing to build this, starting from the cover background, this, and then we have image card, which we won't be needing in this video, but then later down the line we'll need this. These images are basically for these circle images. So there are two of them. And then I have an image cover, logo, and the pattern image. Okay. Now, so first let's see the structure. So we have here the nav for the navigations. Let's look at the original design. So we have the nav for the navigation. Now, as you see that we have some consistent gapping from left and also from the right if we just exclude this image. So to get this, we'll be using the container class of Bootstrap. Now, if you do not know what a container is, you can just come here. You can search container Bootstrap. And let's go here and let's go to the latest version. Let's search here container. So it will explain you that containers are fundamental building block of the Bootstrap that contain padding and align your content within a given device or viewport. Now, as you can see the different sizes of different containers. So we will be using container and then this container MD, which is for the medium devices. Now this works, so this takes 100% in the devices which have size less than 556 pixels, 100% for less than 556. So, and then for the medium devices also, it takes 100%. But then for the medium devices, it takes 720 pixels. And then for the large, extra large, and for extra large. So these are the width of the container. And then these are aligned at the center. So if here, let's add a container div and let's add a container MD. And if I were to write here lorem 100, you won't see anything since we haven't added our Bootstrap. So let's add the CDN. So Bootstrap CDN.js. Here you can download the entire Bootstrap, but it's just an overkill. So we'll just get the grid here, bootstrap grid.main.css. Now this grid comes with the containers. So you can come here and you can paste it. Let's remove this. And yeah, we have the Bootstrap grid. Now let's try to add the container and container MD lorem 100. Let's see. You'd see we have automatic gapping from left to right. And then for the icons, we'll be using remix icons. So remix icon CDN.js. Let's get the icons. Let's copy this and let's paste it here. So we have the nav, and then so we'll have a main tag which will basically wrap up the entire website, and then we'll have different sections. So this is the about section, then you have the services section, which is this, then the client section, the features section, something of this sort, and then the report section, which is this, and then you have the footer. Now the one that we'll be building in this video is this. So first let's add the navigation, which is this. Now inside of the navigation, as you see, the content are at the center, so we need a container, and let's add container MD for that. And then we have an anchor tag for this logo, and I have added the link, which is this. And then you would have an anchor tag for the login and an anchor tag with the class of btn and btn dark with get started and then the arrow icon, which is this. Now you may wonder that the fonts are really small. The reason for that is because here in the CSS I have added font size to 62.5%. Since we're kind of building it in a professional way, so we'll be using the relative units instead of the pixel values that we normally use. So now we'll be using rem units. So what this font size would do, it would make 1 rem equal to 10 pixels. So it'll be easy for us to handle the rem units. So there's that. And then, yeah. So we are done with the nav. Now this BTN and BTN dark, so if you look at the design, we have some similar buttons and we do not want to build them multiple times. So this button is same exactly as this one. The only difference maybe you'd see is with, I think there's with these two buttons. Now these have yellow background and that's the only thing that they have. The rest, they're same. So we only would have a BTN dark and BTN yellow, which would change the background color of this button. So we have the cover, which would have the heading. So we'd have a container since we want it to be at the center. Now we have the intro, which is this section. And this intro would have a gradient heading, which is this, along with the circle images. Now there are 3 circle image, so we'll have 3 circle image divs. Now these would have image inside of them, so we have 2 images, and the third one is an icon. So I'll just add the remix icon of the folder fill. Let's save and let's see. So we have this, and then we have another intro wherein we have the heading. Now this heading is this, which says acquisition, and it does not have any gradient. So the gradient one would be the one which we're specifying as gradient heading, and this is the normal black heading. And then we have intro detail wherein we have a paragraph of text, and this button is in circular shape, so we want to have a BTN circle, BTN yellow, since this has a yellow background, and these also you'd see these are circular. The only difference is these will be black in color, so we can add BTN dark. So I'll add this. Now for the footer, we have this button and also these 3 circle icons. So we have the footer top, wherein we have a BTN dark with get started and then the arrow icon. And then we have another button which is hidden for the larger screen devices, but when you make it or you open it in smaller screens, you would have this download on iOS. This big kind of like a div, so we have a short or simple button for that. So we also would need to add that. Now this would have a BTN of yellow and then show mobile, which is responsible for making it visible only on the mobile devices, and for the large screens we'll just hide this. And then we have the share div with 3 anchor tags wherein we have 3 icons: Discord, then we have Twitter, and then we have Instagram. And then we need the CTA, which is this one, and then we'd have a div with the class of download with the content of this download mobile app, and then this app available on Apple Store, and then an anchor tag, which is this. Basically, when you click, you want to do something or navigate it to the iOS or App Store. So we have an anchor tag with the class of CTA button, and then we have a div with the rating for this, and then on App Store, and then we have a small with the Apple icon. So we'll be creating this background kind of like a square, and then we have the icon in the center. And then we have the div with the name of cover image, wherein we have the cover image, which is this. Now let's begin our styling. So in the CSS, we'd first target the body. We'd add the font family of Malish. We'd have width and min height of 100 viewport height, font size, and an overflow X of hidden. Now let's target the anchor tags. All the anchor tags that we have, we do not want them to have a text decoration, and also we want them to inherit the color of their parent. And then we target the main, we give it width and a min height, and then we target the nav. Now the navigation would have it as position fixed, as when you scroll, if you see for the smaller device as well, you can basically, now since we have less or limited content, we are unable to scroll. Let's see. Yeah. So for this, if we scroll down, you'd see that this navigation kind of sticks at the top. So this is due to the position of fixed. So let's add position fixed here, and then top 0, left 0. Basically, we want it to stick at the top. And then width of 100 viewport width. Basically, this would take the entire width. Z index of 10. Basically, I want the nav to be at the top of all the different elements that we have, since we want the other elements to go underneath the nav and not on top. And then we have the background of the cover image so that it kind of blends with the background, you see. And the position of the background needs to be top, or else it won't blend in. And then we have display flex, justify content center, align items to center. And then the container that we had, we target that. Gap of 3 rem with padding. Let's save. And then we target the logo. We'll give it a width, and also we'll scale it a little bit. Now the logo needs to be margin right auto, meaning that these would get pushed. Let's save. Now we're going to target the anchor tag. We'd have font weight to bold. And now let's target the cover. So here, let's add the background of the cover background that we have. As you can see, it is blending really well, but we need to add this no repeat so that it doesn't really repeat. Background size needs to be covered. Min height and also width of 100 viewport width. And a padding of top of 13, so that we have a gapping from the top. Now the cover container, we're going to have position relative, since we're going to be absolutely positioning some of the stuff inside of the container that we had for the cover, which is this. Now let's target the BTNs, or the buttons. The first button that we have, the capsule type, would have a padding top and bottom, and also left and right. We're going to give it a border radius of 3 rem. Font weight, normal, since the anchor tag here are bold, but these buttons do not really need to be bold. So we'd need to add font weight to normal. Font size of 1.2 rem. Outline and border to none, since this BTN class may be sometimes used in buttons, the actual button element. So those button elements have outline and border by default, so we do not want them to have any outline button, so we'll just remove it. And then the color needs to be white, and For the background, we can have BTN dark, which would have a dark background. Let's save. This is BTN dark. We have the same over here. So it just saves up a lot of our trouble to go and manually change it everywhere. So you can have a common class, kind of like a utility class, and apply it in different places where in the same button you need. And then you have BTN circle with height same, since this is going to be in circle. And then you need the border radius to be 50% with outline and border. Then you have display grid with place content to center. Font size of 2.1 rem. Color white. And then BTN yellow. Have the yellow color. Let's look at the circle buttons. So you see we have these buttons ready. Now let's target the intro. Let's add display flex, align items to center in a gap of 2 rem. So they're flex aligned. Now these circle images are inside of a circle images div. First, let's target the heading, the gradient one, and let's give it font size, font weight. And then we want to add a linear gradient background. Now this is going to be to right. Let's copy the colors. Now we want this yellowish color to start from 68%, meaning somewhere from here maybe. So when you save, this is what you get. Now this linear gradient is in the background, but you want it to be in the text and not in the background, basically as a color. So what you need to do is you need to add WebKit background clip to text. And then you need to add WebKit text fill color to be transparent. As now it is black, you want it to be transparent. Now let's target the heading. Same font size, same font weight. Only difference is the color would be black. Now let's target the circle images and let's give them display flex. And then the specific image would have a height and width of 5.5 rem with a border radius of 50%. Overflow to hidden, a border of 2 pixels. And then the nth child, the second image would have a translate x of 30%. If you look here, this is kind of overlapping with the first one. So we want to have this translate x of minus 30%. Now these images need to have an object fit of cover. First, let's target the icon of the folder. Let's translate it first 70% in the x axis. In background of this, and display grid place content to center, which would have the icon at the center. And let's increase the size, and also let's add the orangish color. Okay, now let's target the different image inside of the circle image, and let's give them width and height 100% and an object fit of cover. Now let's target the intro detail, when we have font size 1.8 rem, width of 40%, min width of 40 rem. Basically, we're kind of setting the min width to be 40 rem. So this is basically the minimum width that it needs to have. Now, for instance, if the width with 40% is less than 40 rem, then this would at least take 40 rem as its width. Margin block, basically top and bottom of 2 rem. And the color of this. And the position of relative, since this circle, BTN, would be placed absolutely. Line height of 1.5, let's save. Now let's target the circle, BTN inside of the intro detail. Let's scale it up. Let's increase the font size and set its position to absolute with right and top value. Let's save. And there you go. Now we're going to target the intro footer. We're going to have margin top of 3 rem with display flex direction to column, since we want them to stack, and align items to flex start. Gap of 2 rem, basically the gapping between the two divs inside of the intro footer. Margin bottom of 2 rem, and then the intro footer top which has this get started and also this download on iOS. We want to target that. We want to set display flex, gap of 2 rem. Let's save. And then the share that you have, we want to target that. I'm going to set display flex with gap of 1 rem. We'll have now gap between these buttons. Now let's target the cover image. We want to set its position to absolute, width to 100%, and max width and max height to this, right to 0, and top to 60%. Now we want to translate it along the y-axis and set the overflow to hidden. So we have the image of this, something like this. Now we want to need to set the object fit of this to cover. So let's target that. And so before doing that, let's add border radius and also a border of white of 5 pixels. And then the image inside of the cover, we're going to give it width and height, or just width, and then we can give the object fit to cover, and there you go. Now this button needs to be hidden on normal large screen devices or PCs and tablets. So we're going to target this show mobile class and set display none. Now the CTA that we had, the fancy button in at the center, we're going to target that. We're going to set its position to absolute with top and left value, and also will translate it -50%. Now the Z index needs to be 2, since this is going to be on top of this cover image. I'm going to target the paragraph. We're going to give it font size and also font weight with margin bottom, and then the span which we have, I'm going to set its display to inline block and set its font size and also margin bottom. Now the download, which basically wraps up everything, needs to have a min width and also a Z index with position of relative, reason I think for adding this is because we need to have a Z index for this download, which you'll understand just in a second. The background needs to be black and color needs to be white. The border, and now we're targeting the before pseudo selector. I'm going to set the content to empty string, and we want to have the background of the pattern, no repeat, position absolute, width and height, and also top and left value. Now you're going to want to set the background size to contain and transform rotate it 315 degrees. Now you if you hadn't set this background or this download with position relative, and if we hadn't set this Z index of 10, we wouldn't have been able to set this before, just behind this CTA div. So just so that this pattern comes underneath this download, we had to have this position relative along with this Z index. Now this needs to have a Z index of -1. Even if you do not, even if you don't add, this would still work fine. And then we want the opacity to be 0.8. Now we're going to target the CTA button, basically this button, this entire button. So you want to have display flex with padding right of 1 rem, align items center, and a gap of 2 rem with background of white. And also we're going to set some styling to the color, font size, and also font weight. Now let's target the border radius and set that to 1 rem with overflow to hidden, which you'll understand just in a second, since we're going to be targeting the rating, and we're going to give it height and width, background of yellow color, and then this display grid, place content to center. Now the color needs to be white, and then font size of 2.2 rem, position absolute, since we have these two circles. So this one's going to be the before and this one's going to be after. So we're going to be using pseudo selectors for that. So we'll be targeting that. So we have targeted the before and after for those circles. We're going to set position absolute with height and width, this, transform, translate, and also border radius of 50%, background of black. Now we're going to target the before, we're going to position it at the top, right 0, and for the after, we're going to have top 100% and right 0. Let's save, and we have these circles aligned. Now let's target the small, which is basically the square that holds this icon. Let's set the background to red so that we can see, and height and width to 5 rem. Display grid, place content to center so that the icon is at the center. Let's change the background to black. Let's add the color to white. Let's increase the font size, and let's give a bit curve to the background. Okay. Now we want to set its margin left to auto. Now we want to need to style it for the different media screens, since for the PC it is done. So let's see the responsiveness. It looks really horrible. Now we need to style it. So now, yes. So you can click onto this responsive option, and here you can set the different screen width. First, let's add 1400. So this is fine. The only thing that we need to add here, the cover image needs to have a right of -5%. Okay. Right. Okay. Now for 1300 pixels, let's make it 1300. Here, and the cover image to be right -2% with max width of 58 rem. And then for 1200, we want to need to have the cover image with top and right and also max width of 50 rem. The intro needs to be flex wrap. And then the heading need to have a font size of 6 rem. Now we're gonna have this intro detail and then this BTN circle, top -70% and right of this. Let's save. As you can see, less than 1200, and then you'd have this. More than 1200, you have this. Okay. 992 pixels. Let's target that. 992 pixels. It's this, but less than 992. Intro needs to be flex wrap reverse. Now you would have those circles at the top, and then you would have the heading. The cover image needs to have top auto, left auto. Since now we won't be positioning it absolutely, we just add position relative with margin top of 18 rem with max width of 100%. I'm going to target the CTA. We'd have top 80% with intro detail now, width of 100%. Now the BTN circle, this up with top minus 50%, 150% and right 30%. Let's save. And then we're going to target the footer with flex direction to row. Since this was in column, let's save. And now for 768, yeah, for this would have HTML font size of 55%. Now in the HTML, we're just reducing the font size of 55%, which would lead the value of 1 rem to decrease. So basically we're scaling the entire website's size by just changing the font size. And we'll target the intro detail BTN circle and we'll just remove that with intro detail min width. So intro detail would have a min width of 100%. And now we're going to target the max width of 575 pixels. 575. And here, nav container needs to have a padding inline of 2 rem. I'm going to target the cover, padding inline of 2 rem. Yes. Okay. And then the cover needs to have a padding inline of 2 rem, basically gapping from left and right. And then the image will just reduce the size of our logo. The gradient font size of 5 rem. And then the cover image, let's remove it. Let's also remove the CTA. And now we need to show our in the footer, we need to show that download on iOS button. So first, let's set the flex direction to column. And then show mobile to display inline block. So yeah, there you have it. So for this section, so we have created the structure of the entire page. So now in the about, we need the container since we want the margin from left and right. Now, if you guys haven't followed out the previous video, please make sure to watch that, or else this part is kind of going to be a bit confusing. You wouldn't really know that what we're using, where is this container, and all the different styles. So please make sure to watch the previous video and then come back and watch this. So we have this container, and then inside of it, we're going to have the paragraph for this heading, and then we're going to have a div with the name of courses, wherein we're going to have all these courses inside of a course div. Let's add the images. All right. And then we'd have a bootstrap class of row, since we're going to be using here the bootstrap grid system. Now you'd see that we have 3 columns here. Now what I want to do is, since these columns are kind of equal in width, now we already know that bootstrap grid is a 12 column based grid. So basically, if I want this row to be divided into 3 equal columns, so that means each column here needs to be of width of 4. So this needs to be column of width of 4, 4 and 4. When you add up, it becomes 12. So what I can do here is I can add a call MD4, call MD4 and call MD4. Now this MD here means that whenever your screen size is less than 768 pixels, each individual column would take up the entire width. Now, whenever you're not on medium devices, this would take up 4 column width. But then if you're on any devices wherein the screen width is less than 768 pixels, each individual row would take up the entire size or the entire width of the row, and then they would kind of stack on top of each other. So let's add some content here. Let's add lorem. Let's copy and paste it here, just so that I can explain you what is actually going on. Now, if you're wondering, we have few other types as well. So this MD is for medium, LG is for large, XL is for extra large, and then we have SM for small. And then if you want to add for extra smalls, we don't have actually any class for extra smalls. We just have call-6, which basically targets all the small devices. Let's save and let's see. So you would see that right after this, you'd see that we have 3 columns, and now each of them are equal in width. Now, as the size of the browser shrinks to less than 768, you see they kind of stack on top of each other. Now, if I don't want them to stack, what I need to do is I need to specify another column. Let's say call SM6, all SM6, and call SM6. Now, what this means is for smaller screens, you want each column or each div to take up 50%. Since remember, we know that one row has 12 columns. So if one div takes 6, then the next div would have only a space of 6. So this is what it means of having like 50-50. So first row, this one has 50%, this one has 50%, and then the next one goes and moves down to the next row, which is this. And if we had another here, let's copy and paste, this would come right next to this. All right, let's remove it as of now. So in these columns, what we essentially need is we need a section heading. First, we need a section heading, which is this. Now, this section heading is kind of like a utility class, which we're going to be using in multiple places. So this one is being used here, also here, and also in these sections as well. So this will help a lot. So let's add it as a utility class, and then we'd add our heading, and then a span for the text, and then a break tag, and then our btn dark class, which we built in our previous video. Now for these 2 columns, we can have a card of the type of card border. Now the reason for having this name card border is because the first reason is I kind of suck naming these, and the second one is I felt that since this has kind of like a border on top, so I think it would be easier to name it card border. So yeah, we'd have card border, when we're going to have a span with the name of index, just so we can have the numbering of what number of card it is. And then we have a utility class which would change or add the color of the text. Since you would see that all of these have different colors. This one is purple, green, blue, and yellow. So we're going to have 4 specific utility classes. And you would know that this is really helpful. You would know in a second where this is helping. So these 4 utility classes can also be used in these areas, you see. So we can essentially use a section heading to have this, and then we can add or pair it up with the txt purple, and we're going to have a text of width such as this, but then the color would be purple. So we're going to have the span, we're going to have the border, we're going to have the p tag for kind of like the heading of the card, and then span for the text. And then I'm going to paste in another card border, since we have 2 in one column, and then I'll paste the other 2 in the other column. Now essentially you could have nested here a row inside of another row. What I mean by is that you could have added a row here for the entire big row, and here you could have added a column of 4, and then here column of 8 would be left, and then inside of that column of 8 you could have created another row. So stuff might be confusing, so I'll show you in a different section how you can do it that way, the way where you nest rows and you create these. So yeah, this section is done. Now let's target the services. When we have the container, we have a paragraph with solutions, section heading with the heading, and span with the text, and then row when we have, so we have 4 cars, so we could have added a call MD3 4 times for 4 equal. But what I wanted is for small screens, I want to have 2 cards in each row. So for larger screens, it's okay. So for larger screens, I want to show all the 4. But then for smaller screens, I want 50-50. So call SM6. So we would have 4 such cards, and we're gonna have a card of service since this is more like a service section. So I just thought it would be okay to write the name of the class as card service. Now here we'd have the icon, this, and then the paragraph with the heading, and then span with the text, and also the arrow icon inside of the div arrow. Now let's paste this. All right, so we're done with the services section as well. Now for the client section, we'd have the container, we'd have the row, and then you could have a column MD6 for this, and then you would have a section heading which would say innovating with talent leaders for this, and then inside of this you could have awards when we have 4 award divs with 4 images of awards, and then you can have another call MD6 for this, within which you can have a row, which I was just saying how you could nest. So you can have a row inside of this div, and then you can have this column of 6, which is basically in every screen size, you would have this div take up 50% of the size of the row. And here you can have section with text purple, section heading with text purple of this, and then span of this, and then again we call 6 for this one, then for this, and then last one for this. So we're done with the HTML. Let's move to the CSS. In the CSS, first let's target the about, and I want to give some padding. So I'll give padding 6 rem from top and bottom, and left and right 0. So here it is. And then the paragraph font size, and I also want to increase the font weight, and the text needs to be at the center with margin bottom. Now let's target the courses width, and also we want to have display flex and flex wrap, since whenever we change the screen size of the browser, we want the courses to kind of wrap around. So we would have that, and justify content and align items to center so that when they wrap, they're at the center basically. And each course should have a gap of 1 rem with margin bottom of 8 rem. Now let's target the course. We're going to give a background, a height and width, and also display flex, align items, and justify content to center, since the course would have a background, but then the image should be at the center. And also padding. Now we're going to target the image. We're going to give them width 100% and object fit of contain. All right, you see? All those are aligned so well. Now we're going to target the section heading. We're going to give it font size of 3.6 rem with font weight. Let's save. Okay, it's looking good. Now we're going to target the about span. So all the span that about has. Now we want it to have display block. Now I'm hoping that you guys already know that span tags are inline, so you cannot add margin to those. So you need to add display block first, and then you need to add margin. So margin top and bottom 1 rem, line height of 1.5, and a color of this. Now the anchor tag, we want to have margin bottom of 4 rem, and then display of inline block, so that we can have this margin bottom, or else if you don't have this, and this margin won't take into effect, since anchor tags are also inline elements. Now the card border, we're going to have width of 100%. So basically, I want the card to take the entire width of the column. And then a flex direction of column, with align items to flex start, we want everything on the left. And then margin bottom of 3 rem, let's save. And then the border needs to be 100% width with height of this and the background color of this. Now remember, we had some styling for the about span and also for the paragraph of the about. Card border also uses the span and also uses the paragraph. So we want to remove that styling. So we want to remove the margin. And also for the paragraph, we also want to add a margin block, or basically top and bottom of 1 rem, and font size of 1.6. And for the span, we want to have line height of 1.5. Now for the index, we want to have font weight of 800. And then we're going to add our utility classes of purple, green, blue, and yellow. Let's save, and you can see. Now the same got added here, and you see, we did not have to style it separately. Now for the services, same, we want to have the same padding of 6 rem for top and bottom, and left 0. Now text needs to be at the center with linear gradient background. If you look at the design, we have linear gradient background. So I'm going to be copying this color and also this color, and I'll paste it. Let's save. Okay. And then the paragraph, we're going to give font size and also color, font weight. Let's save. Okay. Now the span, font size, display block, width of 100 characters, and max width of 90%, since sometimes maybe these 100 characters may exceed the width. So we want to have a max width of 90%. And then a margin auto, we want the text to be at the center. So yeah. A margin block and margin bottom. So from top, so instead of here having block, I could have written top, but yeah, it is what it is. So we have from top, we have 1 rem, and from bottom, I have 5 rem. Our service width 100% and height of 25 rem. Now the reason for adding a height for card service instead of padding, some may want to add padding. The reason for giving it a height is because if you look closer, you see that each of these cards have a fixed height. So I didn't want to ruin the height. So that is the reason why I'm having a fixed height. So in case if the content increases, so the height wouldn't really increase. But if you had added padding, then the sizes of each of the card might have been different, depending upon how many characters of content you have. So here you can have display flex with column, with align items to flex start and also justify content to center. Padding of left and right 5 rem and a background of white with border radius of 2 rem, position relative, since the arrow button is going to be placed absolutely, and a margin bottom of 5 rem. Now we're going to target the span inside of services. We're going to give it width 100%, margin 0, text align of start, or you could have written left, and a margin block of 1 rem. And then for the paragraph, same text align, start, font size, and color. And now for the icon, we're going to give margin bottom of 1 rem, and then the image inside of the icon, we're going to width of 5 rem and object fit to contain. Now we're going to target the arrow. We're going to give it position absolute with bottom 0, left 50%, and transform translate minus 50% along the x-axis, and y-axis we want 50%. Let's save. Let's give it height and width so that we can evenly circle it using border radius of 50% and a background of white. Now, since we want this arrow icon to be at the center, we can add display grid, place content to center, and we can increase the font size and give the color of purple and give it a box shadow. So we're done with both of these sections. Now the only one that is left is our client section. For the clients, we can have padding, same padding of top and bottom of 6 rem and left and right 0. And the span, we're gonna give font size of this, color of this, and width of 25 characters, and a display of inline block, since or else we won't be able to give this margin top of 1 rem. And we target the awards. Width needs to be 80% with display flex, justify content to center, align items to center, and each award of 25% of width and 15 rem of height. Since we have 4 awards, so if we divide 100% by 4, we have 25%. So each would have 25% of width. With display flex, justify content, center, align items to center. So the image would be at the center. Now we're going to target the image with 8 rem of height and object fit of contain. Okay, well fit. And yeah, so now in the responsiveness, we might see some issues which we need to fix. So if you see for the medium, for the screen size of less than 768, you see that this is taking the entire width of the column. But if you look at this one, since we have specified SM6, so for smaller screens, it is taking 2 cards each for one specific row. You see? Okay, so for the responsiveness, first let's give the image a max height of 90%. Let's save. Now, if you look here for the smaller screens, these are way too small. So what we need to do is we're going to target this about span. We're going to increase the font size. Also the services span will increase the font size. And then let's save. You see? Looks good. And then for each section, if I shrink it a bit more, you'd see they're kind of attached at the corners, so which I don't want. So for screen size of less than 575 pixels, I want the section to have an inline padding, which is basically left and right, of 3 rem. Let's save. And yeah, there we go. And I've also added this padding inline in the nav, so that the navigation also has a padding left and right of 3. And then we're going to target the card service, padding 0 from top and bottom, but left and right 2 rem. Okay, so this one, height would be 18 rem. So I've just decreased the height. And yeah, there you have it. Now, let's open up our finished website, which is this. Now here, this is for the reference. We're going to be seeing what we have done from here, and then we'll be adding it into our working site, or the one that we are currently working on. So now we're going to be starting off with this swiper section, wherein we have this slider along with these paginations. So to get that, we need to add swiper.js. So you can type here swiper.js, and you can go to their website, go to docs, getting started, and let's wait. It's taking some time. Okay. Now here, since we're using normal vanilla JavaScript, we need to add the script and this link. So here I'm gonna come to our index.html file, and I'll just add here. First I'll add the script, and then I'll add the CSS for the swiper.js. Now, since we need one single slider or one slide per view, so you can come here in the resource, you can click here on the demos, and here you would get the basic boilerplate of the type of slider that you need. Now in this case, we need something of this sort. Okay, so you can come here and you can click onto this core, and this gonna open up in Code Sandbox, and from here you can copy the code and you can paste it. Now for the CSS, you don't need to worry about the CSS. You just copy the HTML and including the script, so you can just copy and paste it. So what I'm gonna do is I'll just walk you through. So first you need a row basically to hold the swiper, and we're gonna call it swiper, and then we're gonna add a custom class name of clients swiper. Since we'd have two swiper, so one would be for this one and then one would be for this reports. Now if you see the finished one, or if you see the design, you'd see that we have some icons here. So let's open up SAS UI. Probably this was the one. Yes. So yeah. So here if you see, you notice that for this reports we have two indicators, wherein on clicking on the left it moves to the next slide, and then this one to the previous one. But here what I have done is I have made this one automatic instead of like having those buttons. You can also slide and you can also navigate to a specific report, but I didn't feel like adding those buttons. Now if you want, you can add them. So here we're gonna have first a swiper class, which would have the pagination, those dots that you see, and then we'd have a call 12, which is basically taking the entire row, and we're gonna call it swiper wrapper. Now this swiper wrapper wraps all the different slides. So here we're gonna have our each swiper slide. So the first swiper slide that we would have, let's see the design. So here we have two sections. So this one we can again use row, and here we can add call MD6. Basically we want this to be divided into two sections. Now if I just shrink it, you see that for devices less than the medium size, which is around I think 768 probably. So for all the devices with less than that specific size, you see that they're kind of stacking. So this one is on top, and then you have the image in the bottom. So this is why we'd have this one, and then inside of that we have the icon, this quotation that you see. I'd add that, and then we have a paragraph of text, and then Chief Operating Officer, and then the anchor tag for this. And then here in the second 6-column div, I'd add the image, and then I just paste that same slide 2 more times. Since as of now we don't have much content, so I've just repeated the same slide twice. All right, hopefully you can add your own if you want. So yeah, so we have this ready. Now let's look at the one that we just built. So this is how it looks. Now this isn't working since we need to add the JavaScript here. So for the JavaScript, you can add this new swiper, and then I'm creating a variable with the name of client swiper, which is a new swiper type of slider, and then wherein we're targeting the element which needs to be of this swiper slide, so which is client swiper. And then here now you can specify how many slides you need. So we need 1 slide per view, so we have slides per view as 1. And then the pagination, we just add the element which is the swiper pagination that is inside of client swiper. And then if you want, you can add dynamic bullets. If you don't, it's fine. Let's save, and we have this, and we can slide it. Now when you add CSS, you would see that the content from the previous slide is kind of overflowing into the next slide. You need to add CSS, and we need to make it look good. So we're gonna just move on to the CSS for the slider. We target the swiper, give it width of 100%, margin top 5 rem, and then swiper wrapper, no padding. And then the swiper slide would have a max width of 100%, basically the size of the container. In this case, we have column 12. And then Now the reason for adding here directly the swiper class instead of client swiper, because these CSS classes would be also useful for the next slide that we're gonna be building, which is this. So also for the report slider as well. So these would be helpful. So I thought it would be better if we just target the general class, which is swiper. And then now we're gonna target the specific swiper, client swiper, which has this call 6 inside of the swiper slide, and we're gonna give them a margin block and also position relative. And then we're gonna target the image. We're gonna give it width of 95%, object fit of contain. Let's save and let's see. Now the reason for giving it this position of relative is because the quotation would be placed absolutely. Now we're going to target the paragraph. We're going to give it font size, line height, and also a width of 50 characters. But we'd also need to keep in mind that it should not exceed the max width of 90%, and then also margin top of 5 rem. Now we're going to target the icon. We're going to give it font size, and we're going to set it position absolute with top and left value and also a z index of -1, so that it is underneath the content that we have. And we're gonna give it a color of this. Let's save. Okay, looks good. Now we need to work on these paginations. So for the client swiper span, so I think these two, first let's add styles to those. We're going to add display block, margin block as well. And then we're going to target the anchor tag, font weight, and also a color of this violet or purple. Let's save. So we have this ready. Now we're going to target the pagination. We're going to give it display flex with a 5 rem and a gap. And we want everything to be at the center. So we're going to add justify content and align items as center. Now we also need to have a width. So here width needs to be 20 rem, and we're going to add this important because by default the swiper itself has some styling. So we'd add this important just so to overwrite our style. And after that we're gonna target the bullet, the dynamic bullet that we create, and we're gonna scale them to 1, because if not, wait a second, why isn't it visible? Okay, so we need to add height and width to the swiper pagination. So we're going to give it height and width, and also we're going to add a border radius of 50% since we want it to be a circle. Now these two as well, we need to add important so that we overwrite our styles. And we're going to give it a background of this color. Let's save. And why isn't it working? Okay. So we have the swiper slide somewhere here. Okay. Okay. What else did I miss? Okay. Yeah. So there wasn't much. Just had to refresh probably. So we have these paginations, and yeah, you can use them. All right, so we're done with the slider. Now let's work on the features. So for the features, we have a column 6 here, column 6 here, and then we have 4 cards, which on hover, you can see this, the school box shadow. And then here we have the section heading, which we used in the previous video. And then we have span, and then we have this image. Okay, now for the features, we're gonna have a container which basically holds everything, and then inside of that we're gonna have a row with column d6, and in the first call 6, which is this one, we'd have the feature card. Now here we have an icon and then some content. So we're gonna have feature card icon with the icon, and then the feature card content, when we have the p tag for the heading of the card, and then we have the span. Now I'm going to paste it for the other 2 as well, other 3 as well. So let's save, and okay, we have it here. Now these icons are remix icons. Hopefully if you have watched our previous video, you know what we are doing, and if this is the video or this is the first video that you're seeing, please check out the other two, or else you might not understand everything that we are doing. So I'll add those two in the description. And yeah, so for the next column 6, we have the section heading with the span and the image. Let's save. Okay, now let's style this as well. So we're going to target the features. We're going to give it padding of 6 rem top and bottom, and left and right 0, which is the general padding that we have been giving. So we also added that for the for this client section as well, and also for the services, yeah, and also for the about section. Come down, yeah. Now we're going to target the feature span. We give it font size of 1.2 rem with display block, or else we won't be able to give it a margin top and bottom of 1 rem. So we need this to be a display block. Let's save. Now line height needs to be 1.5. You see the gapping now. And the color needs to be this. And we're going to target the feature card. We're going to add display flex with justify content center, align items to center, with a border and a border radius. Now, since I want all the cards to have same height, so we'd specify a height instead of padding. And then gap of 2 rem and a transition of 0.3 seconds ease, since on hover, we're gonna kind of need to add those box shadows. And then we're gonna have the cursor to pointer. Now the icon needs to be in circular shape, at least the holder. So we need to have a height and width same, and then we're going to need to add the border radius of 50%. With display grid and place content to center, this would place the icon at the center of the circle div. And then we're going to increase the font size. Now we're going to target the card content. We're going to give it width, text align of left, and this paragraph of the card content, which is basically the heading, we're going to increase the font size, font weight, and then let's save. Okay, now the column 6, which is inside of the features, we need to add display flex direction to column, since we want some gapping here as well. So we're going to write gap of 1 rem, text align to center. Let's save. You see now the text is at the center. If you see the image, this section, the text is not at the center, but I thought if this one is at the center, this would look better. So I've added this at the center along with this and the image as well. Okay, that is done. Now, if you see the finished one, you would see for each specific card, we have different color for the icon background and also for the icon. So we're going to target the feature card. We're going to give end child of 1, which basically we're targeting the first feature card. And then we're going to targeting the card icon. And then we're specifying the background color as well as the color of the icon. And I'm going to paste it 3 more times. Now we have it for all the 4 icons and along with their background. That is done. Now let's target over to the card hover. So this one needs to have a box shadow of this 0.5, 0.5. This is the horizontal, this is vertical, and this is the spread, and this is the color. So let's save. Now on hover, you'd see the box shadow. Now we're going to target the feature image. This needs to be of max width of 90% and should have a box shadow and a margin auto, since we want it at the center. Let's save. Now this section heading needs to have margin top of 2 rem, because on smaller screens we want this to have some spacing from top. And we're going to target the reports. Now we haven't added the HTML for the reports. Let's add the HTML for that. We're going to have a container. We're going to have a p tag for the reports, kind of like a subheading. And then we're going to have our section heading And then we're going to have a row which would have the swiper. Now this one is going to be called as reports swiper, and we're going to have a col 12 which would have the entire width of the row, and we're going to write it as swiper wrapper with 3 slides, with 3 swiper slides. Now each swiper slide would have a report card, wherein we're going to have the image, which is basically the icon, and then the span with the text, and then anchor tag with learn more. Now I'm going to paste it for the other 3. Let's save. Okay. Now I'm going to be pasting it 3 more times. Let's save. And here, let's add the JavaScript for this. So we're going to target the report swiper. We're going to give it slides per view needs to be 3. Let's save. Okay. We have 3 slides. Space between, we need 30, which is basically the space between each slide. We have 3 slides here, and the space or the gapping between each would be now 30. And then autoplay, which is the automatic animation that you see, we're going to set its delay by 5 seconds, which is 5000. And now we're going to set breakpoints. Now before getting into the breakpoints, let's add the CSS first so that we can see what is actually the style for that. Now for the reports as well, we want a padding from top and bottom of 6 rem, left and right 0. The background needs to be linear gradient. If you see the finished one, we have kind of like a white left, and then some orangish color on the right. Left is white, right is orangish. So I'm going to write to right, white, and then this color. Now this color needs to start from 30%, so I'm going to specify here 30%. Now the position needs to be relative, since we need this design, which is kind of like this rectangular shape. We'd also need that, so we're going to add an after. We're going to set the content to an empty string with position absolute, height 50%, width 50%, background of this orange color, right 0, and top 10%. Let's save. We have this. Now this border radius needs to be 1 rem. Let's save. Now we're going to target the paragraph inside of reports. We're going to shrink the size. Let's save. Okay, which is this one. Now we're going to target the swiper slide. We're going to give it background as transparent. Then we're going to target the report card, width of 90%, overflow hidden, with height of 20 rem, since each slide needs to have fixed height. And then this border radius and also background. Now padding needs to be 1.5 rem with display flex text into column, and a gap of 0.5 rem. Now this also needs to have a box shadow. If you see here, we have this orange box shadow. And then the margin bottom needs to be 2 rem. Let's save. Let's see. Okay. Now we're going to target the span. We're going to give it font size to 1.4 rem with width as 30 characters, but also we need to add max width of 90%, and we'd have this line height of 1.6. Let's save. Now since this is not visible because we have the image so big, we need to shrink the size of the image. We'd have width of 10 rem. Let's save. So the image is now 10 rem. It is placed perfectly. Now we're going to target the anchor tag. We're going to give it font size and also font weight. Margin top of 1 rem. Let's save. Okay. Okay, so this is animating automatically, and also you can slide it with the mouse. Okay. Now the last thing that is left. Okay, so we also need to have this breakpoint. So if you see for the smaller screens, this is still, we have 3 slides per view. Okay, which doesn't look responsive, and we are unable to read the entire text. So we need to add certain breakpoints. Basically, for different screen widths, what number of slides do you want to showcase? So for 320 pixels, we'd have slides per view as 1. For 480 as well, we need 1. For 992, we'd have slides preview as 2. And then for 1200 or more than this, we'd have a slide preview of 3. Let's save. Let's shrink the size. So here we have 1, 1, and then a bit bigger. So we have here 2. Okay. So this is done. Now, I think the only section now that is left is our footer. So we're going to target the footer. We're going to give it container. Now we're going to have a footer card, which is this. So we're going to have card content. We're going to have a section heading, and then a span, and also the yellow button element that we just created in our first video. We're going to add that. And then we're going to have a row which would have call MD3, call MD6, call MD3 and just call 6, which basically is for the medium screens, we'd have 3 columns, but then for any screen that is less than that, we'd have 6 column width. So I'd have 4 such divs. So in the first one, we'd have the logo, we'd have span, and we'd have an yellow BTN. And then for the second one, we'd have a heading of platform. And then for the third one, we'd have solution, then company, and we'd have all these anchor tags. So I'll just quickly paste those in. Let's save. Okay. And then right after that, we'd also have a copyright div, which would have a container, which would hold the span copyright 2024. And then the social icons, I'll just paste those in. Let's save. So HTML for the footer is ready. Let's style those. For the footer, we're going to have padding top of 20 rem with position relative. Since this black that you see, this black background, we're going to add this in an after or before pseudo selector. We're going to set the color to white. Now the anchor tag that you see is black, but in the component we have it as white, so I need to change the color and also font weight. Now we're going to target the footer after pseudo selector. We're going to give it content of empty string with position absolute with width and height, and also bottom and left value, and this black background. Let's save. Okay. Now the z index needs to be at the, so this should be underneath all the different content. So we're going to add the index of -1. Then we're going to have this footer card. We're going to target that. We're going to give it width and height and also border radius of 1 rem, margin auto, since we want it at the center from left and right. So top and bottom we don't need, left and right we need. So we set that as auto. And text align to center and the background of this. So I'll just add the image. Background size needs to be cover with background position as center. Okay. Now we're gonna add display grid with place content to center so that the footer content is at the center, the footer card content, and then the margin bottom 6 rem. Now we're gonna target the footer card content. We're gonna give it display flex action to column with justify content, align items to center, and then gap of 2 rem. Now we can target the span. We're going to give it width of 50 characters, but max width of 80%. And then the logo as well, we're going to give it width of 12 rem. And we're going to just scale it a bit, 1.1. And then object fit to contain. Let's save. Now we're going to target all the call MD3 that we have. We're going to give it display flex action to column, and align items to flex start. Let's save. And then the gap needs to be 0.5 rem, line height of 1.6, and a margin bottom of 2 rem. Let's save. Now the span inside of the call MD3 and also the anchor tag, which are these needs to be a bit grayish. So I'll just add the font size. So this also needs to be a bit smaller in size, and the color needs to be a bit grayish. So add 0.6 opacity to this white color. Let's save. Okay. Now we're going to target the copyright. We're going to give it a border top of 1 pixel. Needs to have a padding of 2 rem from top and bottom. And the container needs to have a display flex with justify content as space between and align items to center, since we want the copyright here and then these icons over here. And then we'll have this color. Let's save. Let's increase the size of the anchor tags. Now, since for the smaller screens, we need to target the feature span. If you see the feature span div, this one, so these are too small, so we need to increase the font size of the span. And then the feature card as well. For very small screens, this height needs to increase, so I'll just add the height to 14 rem. Now it looks better. And then for the section, we'd have this footer row here, and also this copyright container to have a padding inline of 2 rem. In the previous video, I added this padding inline as 3 rem for the section and also for the nav bar, but I realized that this was too much, so I've just added a bit of correction. So this needs to be 2 rem instead of 3. If you want to change, you can change it, or if you just download the source code of this, which will be in the description, you'd get everything already done. Now let's save. And so yeah, everything is done. The site is fully responsive. Now it's time to add the animations. Okay, so to add animation, we won't be using GSAP, but we'll use something known as Wow.js and Animate CSS. So to get those, you can come over here and you can type Wow.js. Now this Wow.js is basically on-scroll animation. So when you scroll to a certain element, you can add animations to those. Now those animations will add from the animate library. So here you can select any one. So let's read the documentation first. So first you need to add the animate CSS and also the Wow.js, which we can get from CDN.js. You can search Wow.js CDN.js, and here I'm gonna search animate CSS CDN.js. Come here, copy the min for the animate, and copy the min for the wow, and you can paste it here. Here you can add the wow, and here you can add the animate. Now how do we add animation? So to add animation, if you see here, first we need to initialize the wow. So here in the script, I'll just add new wow.init. Then you can add this wow class along with the animation that you want to add. So this bounce in up is coming from the animate CSS. So let's go to animate CSS and let's see how to add the animations. Because if you just add this bounce in up, this wouldn't work because the animate CSS is a bit different. So yeah, to add animations using animate CSS, you need to add a couple other styles as well. So you need to add this class of animate __ animated, and then you have animate __ this bounce. Okay, and here you can check the different animations. So if you want bounce, flash, pulse, rubber band, shake X, shake Y, head shake, swing, this tada, wobble, jello, heartbeat, all these different you can try out. You can add those if you want. So here the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add wow, add animate animated, fade in up. Let's save, and let's go to this one. Let's load. You see, so if I were somewhere here, let's say, and if I reload, Now, when I scroll to the first or the heading section or the cover section, now this would animate. If you do not have this wow, this wouldn't really animate when you reach that certain area wherein you have the element. Kind of like the intersection observer that you had. So instead of going through all the trouble, you can just use animate, and this would animate when you reach a certain section. You can see. Now let's add this same in different areas. So for the acquisition also, we need the fade in up. Let's save. Now if you want to add delay, you can come here and you can see that to add delay and all those stuff, where was it? You can add this animate delay -2s, which is for 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5 seconds. And if you want to increase the size of the delay, you can come here in the root and you can change the CSS variable. Okay, now if you wanted to animate faster, you can add this one. If you wanted to animate slower, you can add slower, or if you want to repeat, you can add this. So I won't be going too deep into that. You can add that and you can play with that. Now that is done, let's add fading up to the intro detail of the text, and then we'd add fade in to the join 3,500 leading firms starting new courses. We'd add that, and in the courses as well. And then we're gonna add here fading up here as well. Let's save. See? Now in the services, add that in the solutions. In this heading as well. Span. In the card service, let's save. Now you would see that for the card service, the first two I've added as fade in left, and for the last two I've added as fade in right. So the first two would come in from the left, and the second two would come from the right. If I scroll down a bit, you see they come in from left and right. See? All right, let's paste it a few more times for this innovating leaders section. And then also for the awards. Let's save the swiper slides as well. Okay. Then for the feature cards, along with the image, let's save. And then for the report cards, and now for the footer, we can just add it in the row, fading up, and then the first two from fading left, and then the second two from fading right for the footer. And let's see. These two from left, these two from right. All right, so yeah, this is it, guys. So we have finally completed the entire website. This is fully responsive and this is totally free. I'll add this in the description. You guys can download the source code and you can use it maybe for professional if you want, or maybe if you want to showcase this as a project, you can do it. But I'm at least hoping that you try to build this step by step by watching the video, instead of just downloading the source code and then just adding it as a kind of like a project, because or else you wouldn't actually be learning, you'd just be copy and pasting stuff. So I think it is always better to code along, and because that is how you would learn. So yeah, that's it, guys. Hope you learned something from this video. So this series has come to an end. In the next video, I'll probably start with another design. So yeah, if you have any queries, if you have any questions, please leave them in the description. And yeah, again, these videos take too long to be made. As you can see, this is over now around 35 minutes. And so yeah, I'm hoping that you guys will share this video, and also make sure to comment down what you liked about this video so that YouTube promotes my video to new viewers. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please make sure to subscribe. And again, thanks for the 1500 subscribers. Now the next milestone is to reach 2000 subscribers, so hopefully we'll be able to reach that soon as well. And so yeah, again, thanks for watching the video. Meet you guys in the next video. Till then, bye bye, have a good day.